Hello everyone, Infinity Dave here. I've got a Logitech direct drive wheel in front of me. I've been testing it for about a week and I just want to give my first impressions of it. So really quickly I'm going to go over. So the base, and again, I don't, if anyone's seen any of my videos, I've owned a Fanatec CSL DD, the PlayStation edition, and also the Simucube 2 Pro, among a lot of other belt-driven wheels and the Simucube OSW one. So in comparison to this, I think actually it's really good. I prefer it over the Fanatec CSL DD. That's very subjective, but I think it brings a little bit more smoothness, a bit more fidelity, and I think that comes down to that little bit of newton meters, and actually the motor feels really good. And that's not to say the CSL DD doesn't feel good, because it actually does. Um, Comparing it to the Simucube 2 Pro, I think the Simucube 2 Pro is just a little bit better again than this. But I think when you get into that kind of price range, you're looking at, I think this falls right in the middle, and that's where it feels for me in terms of the comparisons to Fanatec and Simucube. Now the buttons feel okay. Have a kind of a click like like an Xbox controller, really. Nothing really high end. I've owned some of the nice Q control wheels. Doesn't feel like that. I wasn't expecting that. Much more in line with like the Fanatec McLaren wheel, in terms of the buttons. Although that actually probably felt slightly better in terms of the buttons. The quality of the actual wheel is really good. In terms of how solid it is, because it is so solid. Um, and I don't mind the look. It looks very much like the Logitech brand, but I actually don't mind the look of that. Now the paddles, they are magnetic. They're okay. I think they're nothing special. Much like the buttons, they function. They do their job well, but nothing amazing. Now the rotaries on these, I actually really like the rotary switches on these. Well, not switches, but the rotary encoders, should I say? Feel really nice actually. Not far off from what I can remember of Q controls and like the Martin Asher. So I'm quite happy with in terms of that. So overall, I think the wheel's okay. Nothing amazing. It's built quite well. But the biggest thing for me is I don't like wearing gloves, and it's really uncomfortable here, and it tends to rub my thumb. So this is the weakest part for me, is the wheel, but it's not a bad wheel, and I think if you wore gloves, that wouldn't be an issue, and some people might not find it an issue anyway. But for me, it's not the most comfortable, but it functions. In terms of the pedals, now the pedals, again, I've owned a lot of different ones. So the CSL from Fanatec, the V3s, the Heusenfeld Sprints, the Thrustmaster load cell pedals. So I've owned different pedal sets, and these pedals kind of, if I was to compare them to the Fanatec V3s, because I think they're more in that price range. Personally, I think the Fanatec V3s are slightly better than these, but having said that, these are not a bad set of pedals, and they have a lot of accessible modifications that you can do. You can just pull it out, and I prefer that over the V3s. But like with the clutch, it's much more linear than the V3s. Throttle's very much the same. Now the brake pedal, being what I would say is the most important, is pretty good. I like the feel of it. Probably even prefer the feel of it over the V3s, but I'm much more consistent with the V3s. So I think in terms of, again, I think this is subjective. I think in terms of my opinion, the V3s do have a slight edge over the pedal brake, but not massively. And I think it's more of a, if you was to think complete comparisons, they're more of a side grade. They're certainly not an upgrade, but I wouldn't say they're a downgrade either. I think if you're buying it as a package, you'd be more than happy to kind of have these pedals. So just to summarize again, for me, bass, really good. I prefer it over the Fanatec CSL DD 8 Nm, and actually I think it's quite close to the Simucube. So I think in terms of the bass, they've done an amazing job. The wheel, it's okay. It's average. I wouldn't say it's amazing. It's built well, but it's okay. It's not, certainly not screaming. It's a really great wheel, and I'm certainly not promoting it as that. In terms of the pedals, I think the pedals are good. I think if you're buying it as a package, and especially if you're on console, you don't have much of a choice. It's good. So overall, I really like the Logitech Direct Drive wheel. I think where it's priced does fall in between, like the CSL-DD and the Simucube. Is it worth the price differences? I think that depends. Depends on people's budgets, because I think there is a diminishing returns on turn in terms of how much you're going to spend. Because you could spend thousands, and you're going to get better quality if you're spending thousands. But in terms of the price, I think it's actually a really good base. So yeah, thank you everyone. Bye bye.